All right, looks intense. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise and welcome your moderator coming to us from Zimbio.com, Joey Scladini, and today's guest, creator and cast of Spotless.
Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Are you excited for Spotless? Get ready to hear a lot of English accents from all across the world, by the way. So excited. This is Esquire's first scripted series, so let's just get right into it. Concept. Here we go. Ed, where did this concept come from? We got to ask. We're so used to CSI type shows where it's about, figuring out the crime scene, but this is more about covering it up. How did this idea come to mind?
Rolla brought the idea to me about a crime scene cleaning company that works both sides of the law. But the brief was for it to be a character-driven show, for it to be about the guys rather than about the crimes. So we began by developing the two brothers who come over from France. This one, who's been in England, who's been in London for 15 years, and his brother who arrives 15 years later dragging a whole lot of trouble. So we gave them a backstory, a family story, and we tried to build the crime stuff from the characters. We come up with the characters first and then the story.
Speaking of the characters, Mr. Bates.
Bates?
Bates, I know.
Oh, you're Anna? Oh, you've just done Anna. Oh, okay, I get that.
Had to say it like her. So, obviously, your character on the show, there's some mystery behind Nelson. And there's some mystery behind Mr. Bates. Are you drawn to these types of characters that are kind of morally ambiguous?
I'm just drawn to great writing. That's my thing. It's the script every single time. So there was something about Bates. My agent at the time told me to turn it down. She said, he's hardly in it. Doesn't say very much. But there was 3 tiny scenes that broke my heart. And there was just something there I thought that I was just instinctively, drawn to it. And towards, I think it was the 4th season, Spotless came to me, the script arrived on my doorstep, and I don't appear in episode 1, but I read episode 1, and I thought, I've got to do this, and I was lucky enough to get to speak to Ed. He gave me some sample scenes and a synopsis of the character's story arc, and this is the part I've been waiting for a long, long time.
And now about Jean. The thing that I love about Jean is that he is extremely likable, but he does a lot of messed up crap. He's bringing drugs into the family, he's having an affair. How do you juggle, between, the likability and the fact that he's actually doing something that is, I guess, like morally wrong by society standards?
I don't know. I think it comes back to the writing again. I mean, that's how the character was presented to me. You wouldn't hate him. You would judge him on his actions, and I think we do like him because we put ourselves in his situation, and we question ourselves, what would I've done in his situation? But I don't know. It's probably thanks to him.
And Rolla, was there something you had in mind during the casting process? Like, you knew that, the actors and actresses had to be a certain way. Was there a certain theme that, was at the forefront when you're bringing these guys together?
We have a really simple way of working. We just make sure they sleep with us.
It's that easy. All right, so we'll talk after this. No.
It's a two-way street.
I've slept my way to the middle, and I'm staying there. That's how it works.
When somebody walks into a room and you've been living with a story, and we'd been living this story, Corinne Marinin had created the original idea, and finding someone like Ed who has such a distinctive voice. I don't know if any of you know, but he has written many, many episodes of Shameless, the original. And that is a very cool series as well. So he has a great voice. So when you have been living with the characters and then you're doing casting and someone walks in, and their work, their body of work, because both these two gentlemen and our other talented actors have been very busy, and they start reading and talking and explaining why they love this role, you go, fuck, that's it. Just stop. this is the person who's got to do it, and then you have to seduce them. We have to seduce them. Let's get real, just be.
Yeah, it was a great night.
What about sense of humor? One thing that I love about the show is that we're dealing with very serious subject matter, but there's something so funny about it, especially, you know, between Jean and his brother and, you know, that relationship. Talk about, Marc-Andre, talk about maybe why is humor so important for a show like this?
I don't know. I think the humor throughout the season changes too. I think the show evolves. You know, the first couple episodes are great, but then after it, the show gets darker and the comedy comes back. And the comedy is not forced. I think it's there because sometimes there's a situation in life where things are so big, so absurd, so dark that you gotta laugh at it at some point. You know, sometimes you laugh at funerals and stuff. And I think there's situations where, I don't know, I've never found myself in a situation where I had my hands inside a dead body, but I'm sure like if you're stuck there for a couple hours with your brother, you still have a conversation, which is absurd, but you can probably make jokes at some point, I don't know. So I have no idea how Ed intended the comedy to be, but I really felt that it was natural. It's just, it made sense. Yeah.
Well, Ed's from Glasgow, and Glasgow has a very distinct kind of tone, so it's amazing he's still alive at his age, being from Glasgow, and so it sort of comes natural. It's a kind of a gallows humor that they have. So you combine that with really skilled writing and Kareen's expertise with the CSI stuff. It's come together to make a really unique formula, we think. Yeah.
All of the characters going off that, you know, despite the fact that there's humor, they're all going through a really tough time. I would say all of them. Do you, Brendan, feel bad for a specific character the most?
No.
Why is that?
I'm Nelson Clay. I don't feel bad for anybody. Actually, there are moments. He's quite a complex character. He's kind of a stone-cold psychopath, but he has, unlike psychopaths, he does have moments of empathy. He empathizes with his brother. He wants to fix his brother, who's twisted beyond belief, and he has these predilections, which I won't go into now because they're spoilers, and they're really, really dark, and they trouble Nelson. He has great empathy for Jean's character. He is quite sinister in the way that he embroils him into his mob empire, but at the same time has great affection almost, and certainly admiration for his integrity, his skill, and his discipline. And what was the question again? Empathy. Yeah. So he does have empathy. And he loves his wife. I mean, he's not a, you know, he's a man who'd shoot you in the head if you cross him. But I mean, he adores his wife. He puts his wife on a pedestal. So there are these contradictions.
You would kill her in a snap.
Yeah, I would kill her in a snap.
So I was going to say, are we going to empathize with Nelson at some point? Are we going to get that backstory?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's up to you. And what I really love about playing Nelson and parts like Nelson, but particularly Nelson, is I don't care if you like me or not. And so it's up to you. There are moments, I think, when people will really like this character because he's fearless and he's not looking to be sympathized with or supported or liked or loved. And so some people like that in characters where you just don't give a fuck what people think about you. I admire that in people, in certain people. I don't have that. You know, I've wasted far too much time worrying about what people think about me. Nelson doesn't have that. So sometimes you'll like him, sometimes you won't. But he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. Love that.
We were told we could swear, right?
You totally can.
Sorry.
Nobody's offended, right? Ed, I have a question about just the cinematography, especially in those flashback scenes. There's just something very beautiful, and it seems like there's, you know, a choice to make it very, you know, dark looking, and there's, you know, a color palette to it all. Can you talk about, you know, the decision to, you know, make things look a certain way, especially in those flashback scenes?
Sure, the flashback scenes are kind of drip-fed across the 10 episodes of the show. We actually filmed a 20-minute short film of everything that happened 25 years ago. And when we were developing it, we looked at all the shows that we loved. We looked at all the storytelling devices that they employed. And if you look at something like the very first episode of 6 Feet Under, for example, he uses every cheat, Alan Ball, every cheat, every device, every storytelling option under flash forwards, flashbacks, dream sequences, visions, ghosts. He uses the whole gamut. And we actually could have used a lot of stuff like that because Marc-André's character has a terribly complicated history. And he's a guy, when you first meet him at the beginning of episode 1, who's going through a terrible crisis. He loves his wife, but he's pressing a very big self-destruct button. He's sabotaging the things that he loves. He's in financial difficulty. He's in moral difficulty. And we had a decision to make about the flashbacks, which are a very, very necessary part of the story. The flashbacks are the context for every decision these two guys make in the show. So we decided to only use one device, which was just flashback, and because it's 25 years ago, and because of the landscape of the west coast of France, we wanted to make it look really cinematic, really, to give it an almost Ennio Morricone score, make it feel like a Western. It's a very flat, broad landscape, and so we decided to make it look almost cinematic. In fact, at one point, we were even talking about changing the aspect ratio and making it widescreen relative to the rest of the show. We decided against that. That would kind of fuck people's heads up. But no, it was a very conscious decision to make it look different. Because we didn't want to also over-rely on it. We didn't want to cheat. We didn't want to play God and just show it to the audience when we felt like it. We wanted it to come from inside these guys when something from the past was appropriate to what they were doing. Now, you would see what they were feeling. So, yeah, it was a really conscious decision.
So obviously something from the past and the present is death. And Marc-André, would you say that your character has an obsession with death? And it's almost become its own character. Would you say it's its own character as well?
Yeah, but I don't know if he's obsessed by it, but it's been following him for a long time. I mean, I'm not going to get into the specifics. I don't want to spoil anything, but obviously the guy cleans up pieces of dead people, so it's kind of part of him. I think he's not afraid of death. I don't know if he's afraid of his own death. I think he's, at some point, maybe not. I think he likes danger, and maybe there's something comforting for him while working on, on dead scenes and stuff like that. I don't know. He has a strange relationship with death. That's for sure.
I have to ask you too. Before you took on this role, did you have an aversion to like blood or gore, or are you an obsessive cleaner also?
No. I mean, I do have a little OCD, but I know. No, I've never been grossed out by blood and stuff. Obviously, on the show, it's pretty easy because it's all fake, so there's no smell. Because I'm sure the smell is something that you can't really forget. But no, I'm really fine with blood.
My question also, Rolla, why is this project specifically so important to you? What about this project is different than anything you've done? Because I feel like it's very different than anything we're seeing on TV right now.
A lot of people talk about there's too much television out there, and I think the reality is that if you have great television, it rises above all of that noise that we have. And there are not a lot of voices that are of an international appeal, so that they touch people worldwide and really give the fundamental curiosity about something that we hadn't thought about. And that's what we have in this story. We've never really dug into this world. We've never seen what it is. I mean, people say, is that a business? And that combination of the world, the story, the voice that Ed has, which is quite unique, I think that's what makes this extraordinary.
Ed, can you talk about just the process of going into a script and, what that is like in the writer's room?
Sure. Well, actually, it might be quite interesting for you guys. We don't actually have writers' rooms as such in the UK. It was filmed mostly in London, and the way of developing TV there. We don't have the American style writers' room as such. We're moving in that direction, and I'm sure that's where it's going to go. But historically in the UK, although the UK TV is well loved around the world and so on, the writers were kept in isolation from one another in case they might talk, in case they might share ideas. And so, where it's going now, previously you would write your episode. You would talk to the producer would tell you what they want, you would go away and write it. We're moving more towards the American system, but our contracts and our legal system and so on haven't quite caught up. So what we tend to do is have story conferences, 3, 4, 5 days of kind of living, sleeping, eating with one another-ish. And then you go back home. I live in Scotland, I don't live in London. I would go back to Scotland, write stuff for a couple of weeks, come back down, talk with other writers and producers again for another 4 days, 3 days, 4 days, and then go back. So a bit of more of a piecemeal thing. It's not like LA or even New York where you come to the writer's room on a daily basis. So so it was done. It began with a small group of us talking, producers and myself and Corinne, my co-creator. When we got the green light, we then pulled other writers in. But by that time, we had a Bible of, say, 100 pages with each episode outlined. Each episode has then got to be discussed with the writers that we brought on board. Things that are good enough stay. Things that don't stand the test, the discussion get jettisoned, and you hopefully make things better. And gradually work your way to the scripts like that. In the UK as well, we don't have the system that you have in the States where I write my episode, but this woman over here or this guy over here, this guy was good at comedy and this one's good at macho characters or something. We don't have that. Your episode is your episode, and you do that exclusively until the showrunner or someone will do a final polish on it. So there's a slightly different system, but.
Very interesting. Speaking of just UK-style television, Brendan, what do you think the appeal is in the United States, with shows like Downton Abbey, Spotless? Why do we love it so much?
Well, I hope you love Spotless as much as people seem to love Downton Abbey. It's a better show for my tastes. I think Downton Abbey, it's beautifully done. It's brilliantly executed. It's extremely opulent. It's Julian Fellowes is very au fait with modern techniques of television storytelling. He cites things like Coronation Street and Dynasty and NYPD Blue. He educated himself in modern television storytelling, and then he adapted that to this open-ended period piece, which it's not an adaptation of a classic novel, so it's kind of a very modern piece. It's he's not shy about saying it's a very grand soap opera, which is a very, very popular form of TV drama, but we do it in such a way that it's very, very cinematic. We have a lot of characters, and like Spotless, every time someone is on the screen, you are very interested in who they are, what they have to say, and what's happening with them. But you can't define when something is successful, the tipping point for it to become a phenomenon. You can't define that, or we'd all be doing that all the time. So I don't get it. None of us get it. It took us all by surprise that it became such a global phenomenon. North Korea have got it, for Christ's sake. So it's everywhere. But I don't know why.
Yeah. Great answer. No.
But it's just a beautifully.
Yeah.
There's
just something different about
down to our crew, for one thing. I mean, God, the work they put in. We still shot it on regular TV schedules, 5-6 pages a day, but with all that kind of grandness and costumes and hair and all that, and the sweeping grandeur of the house and the locations. I mean, our crew were.
How has it felt to go from the over-the-topness of Downton to the stripped-down, I'm going to tell it like it is kind of guy, he's going from buttoned up to Nelson. What has that transition been like?
Well, it's the other way around. I mean, for me, Downton Abbey wasn't over the topness. I play a very stoic, suppressed, very quiet character, but Nelson, in his own way, is extremely expressive. We have the way it's shot again, has a similar kind of opulence. His properties, the way Marc-Andre was saying the other day, London, the way London is shot is like a character in the show. It's beautifully done. We had the best directors in you know, Pascal and in England shooting our episodes. And Nelson is, I liked being expressive as Nelson, even though he's still contained and you're not quite sure what's going on. I like subtext, so, and Ed gave me plenty of that and plenty of lines, so it's all good.
So I think we're gonna go to the audience now for some questions. There we go.
All right, this is a question from Mark. A very serious question. What happened here?
I just auditioned for a biopic about the Monopoly guy, so I was trying to get the look, to get the part. Now it's just me not working, taking back my property, my body, doing whatever I want with it, getting tattooed, shaving my head, you know, playing hockey.
Hi guys. What are your favorite shows to watch?
Besides your own, we don't watch our own. Actually, I only ever watch American TV. I don't really watch English TV at all. The long-running American cable shows, your Sopranos, the True Detectives, the Americans I'm watching at the moment, shows where you get a long time to tell a very complicated and character-driven story where you don't have to be procedural. The world that when we started on this, it was very clear to us the world didn't need another cop procedural show. That's why it's very much a character-driven show, even though there's lots of action and deaths and all this malarkey. It's very much about the characters. They've each got their own philosophy, their own three-dimensional backstory, which this format gives you the chance to tell. So it's mainly those American long-running cable shows.
I'm much more eclectic, I think. I like the True Detective, but I'm a big fan of How to Get Away with Murder. Yeah. And Empire, I've really enjoyed the soap opera of that. It's been... then I would also say I saw Mr. Robot and was blown away for what it did and for what it said about today and society. I thought that was really cool that USA Networks actually took that leap. So kind of across the board.
Well, obviously Sopranos, first season of True Detective. First 2 seasons of The Killing was insane. And
original version or the
no,
American
the
version?
American version. And I just watched, I'm not sure it's available on Netflix US, but I just watched on Canadian Netflix a French-Canadian show called Série Noire, which is really strange and really interesting. And if you get the chance to watch it, you should watch it. It's awesome.
The Sopranos changed everything for me, not just in terms of it being phenomenal television and James Gandolfini and what he did. I think it was the catalyst behind the golden age of television and the television revolution that we're experiencing now. I like Ed, I rarely watch British television. I can't be loyal to things on a weekly basis. I've just watched Bloodlines on Netflix, which Sam Shepard was in it for a start. I've done 2 Sam Shepard plays. He's my great hero, and it's a phenomenal series. You know, The Wire again changed everything. House of Cards. You know, I'm a Netflix junkie. It just goes on and on. So it really is a golden age. It's a great time for the industry, I think, and the viewer.
Yeah. This is going to be our last question.
So this question is for the actors. What's the hardest part about transforming into your character? Do you completely take your personality away from the character, or do you infuse some of your own personality into the characters? And have you ever incorporated past roles that you've done into the new characters that you're playing today?
My initial training was in a very intense methods place in Dublin, and my guru trained with Strasbourg in New York, and she was an Irish American. And so I used to get very method and think that any part I played wasn't me, but you can't escape you. So there's always an aspect of yourself that comes into a part that you play, and you just imagine yourself, a different aspect of yourself, and you emphasize that according to your parts. I don't know if I've told you this, but Ed's father...
Tell me. Educate me, Brendan.
In terms of playing this character, Ed's father comes from the town that I come from. And my mother comes from the town that Ed's from.
No way.
Yeah, really. So we've been doing this all week. And so we talked about the kind of people that we knew, the kind of people that we heard of. Like hard towns, I mean, industrial steel town where I come from, Glasgow where he comes from. And we talked about the kind of psychopaths that we knew, the hard men, all this kind of stuff. And we thought, I based it on people that I knew. So there's an element of impersonation. There's an element of tapping into your own stone-cold psychopathy, if you have that. It's quite hard to talk about your process because it's all in the world of the imagination and dreams. That's where you come up with your performance and the way you're going to play a character. But Ed was very generous, and we had a lot of chats about making this character not... you're not afraid of his anger or his wrath. You're afraid of his disapproval. He has this calm thing. You do not cross him. It was a very calm thing. We didn't want to do the kind of cliched mob boss. He gets furious. He's going to hit you with a baseball bat and all that. We thought, no, I've got people to do that. And so you just use all kinds of resources, really. You just use, you know what I mean? When you're rehearsing or preparing to do a part, you just all little bits go into the soup.
I don't know. I have no idea. Seriously, I'm not method. I still don't know why I'm acting. I just do it. To be honest, no, but I mean, it happens when I read the script for the first time. If I read a script and I want to say the words out loud, and there's just something that happens that the character starts, I don't know, appearing in front of me, and whatever inside me. It sounds weird. I don't know. I have a problem taking myself seriously doing this job because it's for me, being an actor is something. It's a craft, but at the same time, I've seen incredible performances by non-actors, by kids, by I've seen a dog in one movie that was amazing. And I know there's a lot of work behind, but there's a lot of work behind my job, and there's a lot of people that my performance depends on many people, on pretty much everyone on set. So I don't know. I think it's just, we would have shot this scene on another day, would have been different. And the character just, I don't know, it's just there. And when it's well written and it speaks to you in a way, it just happens. I don't know.
And they both will blow you away. They're being very modest, the two of them.
No, I'm not being modest. We're brilliant.
You're likable.
Thank you guys so much. We're so excited about the show. And you can tune into Esquire Network Saturday at 10/9 Central. It's such a great show. Seriously. Thank you.